This video is not about rules. It's not a rule book. It's a guide, and hopefully a comprehensive guide to realistic sketching. I'm going to divide this video into two parts, the technical part and the other aspects of realistic sketching. Art is a journey where you find your own way. Let's say that you're over here and your goal is over there. You can reach your goal by being taught how to draw and paint. That way is not fun. You don't learn anything else than what you're taught. Or you can learn your own way, learn by experience. That way is much more fun, and you learn things which only experience can teach. Through this video, I don't want to direct you. I want to help you find your own way and reach your goal of drawing realistically. So let's get started. Shading is the most important part of realism. Shading should be smooth and should have texture. The first component to good shading is a smooth gradient. A smooth gradient means a smooth transition from darker shading to lighter shading. It should be blended well and lines should not be visible. You can choose whether you want to go from light to dark or dark to light. The basic method is to lay a base layer with an HB or a 2B pencil. Let's say here that we want to go from dark to light. So on top of the base layer, we start from one end with a 4B pencil and press hard on one end and decrease the pressure towards the other end. You can apply the strokes in different directions to give a smooth finish. On top of that 4B layer, apply a 6B layer in the same process, starting from one end, pressing harder and decreasing the pressure towards the other end. After you finish this 6B or 8B layer, you can finish off with a 10B pencil. Don't press too hard on the 10B pencil as it is already very dark. You just have to apply the 10B pencil on the darkest end just to give it much more finished look. Now you have to learn how to apply this shading or smooth gradient to real life objects. What do you notice about the sketch that I have done here? There are no dark outlines. That is because in real life, real objects do not have dark black outlines. You may think that a dark outline completes your sketch, but it also destroys the realism of your drawing. Let me show you what a dark outline does to a realistic sketch. For the cartoon style, dark outlines are perfect, but as you can see here, after I applied the black outline, the sketch doesn't look realistic anymore. A smooth gradient alone cannot bring realism to your sketch. You also need texture. For me, I think texture is the graphic representation of how an object feels in your hand. Without texture, everything would just feel smooth. The same applies for drawing. If you do not give texture to your shading, everything will look smooth, and in real life, everything is not smooth, and therefore your sketch will not look realistic. There are many methods of bringing texture to your drawings. All methods involve a base layer. You should always start with a base layer, a smooth base layer done in light pencil, preferably HB or 2B. For the first method, which is also my favourite method, you have to apply small circular strokes with a darker pencil on top of the base layer and slowly build up the texture. Method 2 involves sellotape and a sharp pencil. So what you do in this method is you create a darker base layer, a bit more darker than usual, and then you take a piece of tape, don't touch it on the surface, hold it just above the base layer, and then apply small circular strokes with your pencil. So what happens is that in the area where you apply the circular strokes, the sellotape touches the graphite layer and takes off a bit of the graphite in the exact area where the pencil has touched. And so it gives a kind of a texture to the base layer. But I don't recommend this method because it's very risky. If you're not using a very good quality paper, it might take a layer off of the paper itself. You can try it for yourself if you want, and if it works, that's awesome. Method 3 is interesting. I used to use it before, but not now. It involves watercolor and pencil. So you create the base layer with grey watercolor, like a wash, but a bit darker than your standard wash. You let it dry, and then you build texture with a pencil, preferably 4B or 6B. For me, this method is best for drawing hair, because the grey base, the watercolor base, gives density to the hair. Although popular opinion is that realistic drawings don't have their own style, you can build your own style in realism by finding your own way of applying texture to your drawings. So find your own favourite method of building texture. Shadows are another important part of realism. Well-drawn shadows can contribute to how realistic your sketch looks. A sketch looks incomplete without a shadow, and to draw a shadow you have to basically apply the gradient, darker towards the object and lighter as you go further away from the object. I've done a full tutorial on how to draw shadows. You can go watch that and I'll link it in the description. Here are some tips that may help you while drawing human features. If you want full extended tutorials of any of these, please do tell me in the comments and I'll be happy to make one. The trick to drawing realistic hair is to consider hair as a solid body and shade it in that way. Hair is more darker towards the curls or the ends and is much more lighter in the mid portions. Like any object, first you have to lay a light base layer with a 2B or an HB pencil. Remember, the base layer should always be smooth. On top of that, you can map the path of each individual layer with straight strokes with a 4B pencil. After you've done that, with a 6B pencil, accentuate each individual hair and shade darker towards the curls and the ends. The final step is to make the areas near the ends and the curls darker by either an 8B or a 10B pencil. Here's a quick recap of the whole process. So you start off by drawing a roughly mango-shaped structure, which is the structure of the eye. If this eye tutorial seems a bit short to you, I have also made a full tutorial and I'll link that in the description. When you draw the iris, remember to keep it perfectly circular. As usual, create a base layer with a 2B or an HB pencil. The shading of the eye is as such. It's darker around the pupil and also dark around the outer edges of the circle, and it's lighter in between these two parts. Create a smooth gradient with the darker shades around the outer edges and around the pupil. Do not leave the whites of the eye plain white. Give a shading with the gradient starting from the corners of the eye. The corners of the eye and the areas near the corner should be darker than the insides of the eye. The corners of the eye and the areas near the corner of the eye are much more darker than the middle portion, so give slight shading near the corners to make it look a bit more darker. Hands are one of the most feared objects in the art community. Many people find hands very hard to draw. If you segregate the hand into geometric objects, it becomes very easy. So basically, the middle portions of the finger you can draw as a cuboid first, and the joints you can draw as a sphere, and the main body of the hand you can draw as a trapezium. Practice the structure of the hand over and over again until it becomes easy. So after you've created the geometrical structure of the hand, you just have to go over it with a smooth line so as to give the realistic structure of the hand. Drawing veins on the human body where they exist can make your sketch look significantly more realistic. The process is as such. After you've drawn the skin, erase the small parts where the vein exists. Consider veins like a cylinder kept on paper, so you have to give darker shades towards the base and lighter shades towards the top of the vein. For drawing the nose, start off by drawing the nose bridge in a rectangular shape. Draw a small circle for the tip of the nose and a slightly larger circle for the bulge near the nostril. And for the side of the nose which joins the face, you can draw a triangle. And then you just have to go over the geometrical shapes with a smooth line and erase the rest. The same steps can be used if you want to draw the nose from the front view. Use a small circle for the tip of the nose, a rectangular nose bridge, 2 slightly bigger circles for the bulges near the nostrils. Study reflections very carefully. They can make your portrait or any other drawing much more realistic. Let's take the example of a human face. Suppose the light is hitting the face from this direction. The side of the face or the jaw area nearer to the light source is shaded lightly. The parts under the eye and under the lips are usually darker. The area of the face on the other side of the light source is much more darker because the nose casts a shadow on it. Always remember that the skin adheres to the shape of the bone, and the structure of the bone will always show through the skin. So when you're drawing a face, always keep the structure of the skull in mind. Now let's move on to the other aspects. This is what I call the 3 P's, which are patience, practice, and perseverance. These 3 P's are the key ingredients to the recipe of realism. Patience is key. Do not rush while drawing. Shade and give texture slowly. Slow and steady give success. And do not expect results too fast. Realism and realistic sketches take time to develop and make, because everything great takes time. Here is the comparison between a rushed shading and a slowly and steadily done one. Clearly, the shading that was done slowly, steadily and patiently looks much better than the one that was rushed. Practice is obviously very important. The more you practice and develop your hand-eye-brain coordination, the better your drawings get. Identify the areas which need improvement and work on them for at least an hour every day. No matter how imperfect it is, always finish what you started. The third aspect is perseverance. Do not give up, ever. Just keep drawing and keep creating. You will improve in small ways every time you draw. Just make sure that your graph is going up in a positive direction. Just to support the 3 points that I've made, Here's my art from 2015. There was no shading, there was just lines, and I had no patience whatsoever. Then here's my art from 2016, where the shading's much more better than the 2015 one, but it's still rushed and done very carelessly. Now here's my present art from 2017. I think that I've improved significantly from my 2016 art, and I think I've developed patience much more than anything else. So that concludes my comprehensive guide to realism. I know that I'm not a very good teacher, but I've tried to convey everything that I've learned in these few years through this video in a very brief package. I hope you learned something out of it. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. I'll see you next time in a new video. And this is Holmes Draws signing off.